What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so outrage grows over Maryland man's mistaken deportation to El Salvador prison. Okay, so the corporate press, they're still on about this, and apparently outrage is growing over this. Now, we did a video, I think yesterday as a matter of fact, and I'm sorry to keep harping on this situation, but, you know, my job here, basically, is to refute the lies of the corporate press and show you the manipulation. That's exactly what I'm doing. They are harping on this, so I am going to harp on this and refute what they are saying. So it's just insane what they are doing here. Let's get into this because this is absurd. And once again, like, check this out, y'all. You see that it's NBC, and they just copy pasted the Associated Press article. It's just insane. Like, why don't you have your own writers to do this? Write your own story. Like, copy paste, just steal the intellectual property. Like, it's not really, I'm sure they paid for it or whatever, but it's like, come on. Like, are we really that lazy in this country? But I don't write for the corporate press, so I have no idea, I guess. In the 22 days since Maryland resident Kilmar Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported to a notoriously violent prison in El Salvador, his young son has sought comfort in the scent of his missing father's clothes. This is insane. We're going to dip off into something right quick, but let's keep going for a second, and I'm going to break all this down. He shows me how much he missed Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, said in court documents. He has been finding Kilmar's work shirts and smelling them to smell Kilmar's familiar scent. What this is doing, this is the corporate press trying to tug on your heartstrings, provable by this next paragraph. Check this out. Abrego Garcia, 29, who worked as a sheet metal apprentice and was pursuing his journeyman license, was pulled over in an IKEA parking lot and arrested on March 12th with his 5-year-old son in the car. Now, they got this beautiful picture of this guy right here, as you can see. Now, we just heard from his son, a quote from his son, "Oh, he's been going to smell his dad's shirts." Now, what is puzzling about this, if you guys remember from the article the other day, he was arrested and detained in 2019 and actually sent for deportation. He was authorized for deportation, just not to El Salvador, as we learned. But the corporate press doesn't tell you that. They'll just say, oh, well, he wasn't supposed to be deported to El Salvador. But yeah, he was cleared for deportation, as a matter of fact. So, why was he not deported? Well, where are we going to send him to? So, they kept him here for some reason, right? I'm sure it was just a waiting list, and then the Biden administration came in, and there you go. Because that's how these things work. But, what they did, so think about that. 2019. Yeah, that was 6 years ago, as a matter of fact. So, this guy, knowing he's about to be deported, goes and gets married and has a kid in this country to anchor himself to this country, y'all. To anchor himself here. And the corporate press is trying to drum this up like, oh, he's just a guy, he built a family, blah, 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 blah. They vehemently deny, or they attempt to with their reporting, that he's an MS-13 gang member. Although we have court records proving he is, as a matter of fact. Although, once again, the corporate press, they word their way around it. They phrase their way around that statement of fact. It's insane what they're doing with this guy. And this is one of the main reasons why I'm covering this, is because they're trying to drum this up. They're trying to tug on your heartstrings. Well, once again, when we make policy in this country, when we make decisions for policy, we don't do that based upon emotions. In this country, we have laws. You must follow those laws or suffer consequences to those laws. And what the corporate press is doing, they're appealing to your emotion, trying to beat around the bush to get out from underneath the facts. And that is not what the corporate press is supposed to do. The corporate press is set up, it's an institution meant to inform you of what is going on in the world, what is going on with the government. They're supposed to hold bad people to account, to report on bad things that bad people do. They were supposed to report on what the government does, good and bad, whatever it may be. And what are they doing with this? Definitely not that at all. An immigration judge in 2019 had granted him protection from being deported back to El Salvador, where Abrego Garcia was likely to face persecution by local gangs. You see what they're doing? Why was he before an immigration judge in the first place? And why did they not say that he was cleared for deportation? He just wasn't cleared for deportation to El Salvador. And that was, once again, where they keep saying he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador, as if to say that he wasn't supposed to be deported at all. That is a manipulation tactic from these people. Yes, he was definitely supposed to be deported, just not to El Salvador. That was the mistake. But they keep drumming this thing up. Once again, it's structured deception, if you will. It's just insane what the corporate press do. Yet he was sent back to his native El Salvador, which President Donald Trump's administration acknowledged on Monday was an administrative error. Despite this, White House officials have argued against bringing him back, alleging without showing proof, see, there they go, that he has ties to the MS-13 gang. There's court documents proving this, I'm sorry. The corporate press is lying about this. The administration further says it lacks the power to seek his return from El Salvador's government, noting that a U.S. court could at best order the White House to entreat or even cudgel a close ally. Abrego Garcia's mistaken deportation has outraged many while raising concerns about the explosion of non-citizens who were granted permission to be in the United States. You love how they phrase that, granted permission to be in the United States. I could wring the neck of whoever wrote this article right here, because once again, they are manipulating you just completely, 100% total manipulation right here. Under the law, if you cross our border illegally, you deserve to get deported. That is a crime. It might not be a criminal offense, but you can still serve jail time for that, as a matter of fact. And you deserve to get deported, as a matter of fact. Because if a law enforcement officer, an ICE agent, whatever it may be, all the way up to the President of the United States, if they allow somebody who broke our laws to come into this country to stay here, ignoring that law, that does not mean that the law was not broken. That does not mean that later on we can't enforce this law for some reason. That does not mean that this person that is in the country illegally does not deserve deportation just because they were allowed to come into the country. You see how they word this? You see how they're phrasing this up, drumming this up like he was allowed to stay here? What do you mean allowed to stay here? There are court records showing his deportation orders, as a matter of fact. So no, he is not allowed to stay here. He was just here waiting on that, waiting to be deported because he was already here, because he came here illegally. And the Biden administration decided just to let him go ahead and anchor himself, or attempt to anchor himself to this country. It's all a massive deception, y'all. It really is. And I cannot see or have heard any argument against any of this. Oh, he's trying to come here for a better life. Who cares? Nobody. We don't care. Just ask them nicely. What is this about? Once again, the corporate press is supposed to be the fact bringers, not the heartstring tuggers. Abrego Garcia's family and attorneys have denied any gang ties and argue that the U.S. has little evidence to support its claim. Doesn't matter. They have the evidence to support that claim. You're saying he's not. They're saying he is. There is witness testimony to testify to the fact that he is an MS-13 gang member, as a matter of fact. So, you saying, oh, no, he isn't, does not matter. It's insane what they do. In court documents filed Wednesday, his lawyers argued that the U.S. government's mistake must be corrected and that he be returned. No. Once again, you hear what they're doing here. Must be returned. Why? Why? He was slated for deportation. If, at the very least, what the United States government should do to appease all these people is make sure he's released from that prison or wherever he is in El Salvador, send him to Nicaragua, Brazil, somewhere that'll take him. Why does he have to be returned to the United States? There's no logical argument for this at all. Zero. But the corporate press is trying to appeal to your emotions and say he should be returned. Returned to where? This is not his home country. He was never a legal citizen of this country. Why should we import criminal aliens? There's not an argument for this. And once again, the corporate press, they're supposed to be just fact bringers, but what are they doing here? What exactly are they doing here? They're advocating to break the law. That's what they're doing. They're aiding and abetting a criminal alien at this point. Otherwise, immigration court orders are meaningless because the government can deport whomever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. Attorney Simon Sandoval Mosenberg wrote, yeah, as a matter of fact, yes, that is true. They can deport whoever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. They can do that. You have zero right to be in this country when you break the law to come into it. Sandoval Mossberg noted that the U.S. has been playing El Salvador's government to incarcerate Abrego Garcia and other deportees. He argued that efforts to return him would likely be successful. First, just ask them nicely to please give him back to us. For what? What do you mean give him back to us? Why do we want him? So we can deport him again? Insane, y'all. Their argument that there's nothing they could possibly do to get this guy back is significantly weakened by the fact that on Wednesday of last week, they put Kristi Noem inside that prison. Sandoval Mossberg told the Associated Press in an interview referring to the DHS secretary. Where is the logic in this? Kristi Noem is a United States government official that went there for United States government official business. Do you think that they can just show up, demand a prisoner be released, and bring them back to the country? Do you want her to be an accessory to another crime, my guy? This is a lawyer wanting Kristi Noem to break the law, create another two criminals. Of course, one of them's already a criminal, but he wants Kristi Noem to aid and abet an illegal immigrant entering the country illegally. That's what they're arguing here. And notice, the corporate press didn't say none of this. Oh, he claims that he should come back, or without evidence that he's an MS-13 gang member, because they are actually saying that he's not an MS-13 gang member, and they have no evidence. Like, how could you prove that? I know. But once again, they are not using that term to argue against this when whoever makes whatever claim, if you know what I'm saying. Right? They're basically, they do this for Donald Trump when they don't believe Donald Trump, regardless if it's true or not. They'll say, oh, he said this without evidence. Well, how come they don't do this for other people? They only do this for Republicans. Weird that is, isn't it? They didn't so much as ask and say, by the way, you got this one guy. We messed up. Can we have him back, please? He said, adding that the U.S. previously moved mountains to return people mistakenly deported. Yeah, that's probably because they might have been mistakenly deported. This guy was slated to be deported. He wasn't mistakenly deported, by the way. He was just mistakenly sent to the wrong place. Ohio State law professor, I can't pronounce that, and I'm not going to, said it's reasonable to ask the Trump administration to return Abrego Garcia, but the courts have little recourse if the White House refuses. That's because Abrego Garcia is not a U.S. citizen and is outside the country, the professor said. The Supreme Court has long held that Congress, working with the executive branch, gets to decide who's allowed to enter under what terms. I don't know of a single instance in which a federal court has ordered a presidential administration to allow a particular person who is not a U.S. citizen into the United States, Garcia Hernandez said. Yeah, I mean, not to mention all the other arguments I've been making. Abrego Garcia said he fled El Salvador because a gang, Barrio 18, routinely extorted his parents' business for rent money and threatened to kill him and his brother if the family didn't comply, according to court documents in his 2019 immigration case. You know what? That's according to his testimony. He said that without evidence. He did not offer any evidence at all that this gang in El Salvador extorted his parents. Just letting you know. He said all that in court, in immigration court, without evidence. It's unfounded claims by this guy, by the way. The family sold pupusas, El Salvador's signature dish, which are flat tortilla pouches that hold steaming blends of cheese, beans, and savory pork. Abrego Garcia's mother ran the business Pupuseritas Cecilia out of their home. His father was a former police officer. The family eventually sent Abrego Garcia's brother Cesar to the U.S. Abrego Garcia was also sent to the U.S. after the gang repeatedly tried to recruit him, immigration court documents stated. Once again, this is another one of those people that send unaccompanied minors to the United States. That's just insane, y'all. Like, sure, there's a bad situation, but, you know, separating yourself from your children and just leaving them off in the wild to go to the United States, another country, sure, it might be safe, it might be prosperous, but how can you just leave your kids like that? I don't get that one. Abrego Garcia's immigration from El Salvador was the subject of an October 2019 immigration hearing after he was arrested while looking for work and turned over to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement following allegations about his gang membership. ICE had argued against his release because local police in Maryland had verified his gang membership, court records said. Abrego Garcia subsequently filed for asylum while his lawyers submitted voluminous evidence that he faced the threat of violence in El Salvador. And how, once again, think about that for a second. They didn't say that was unfounded claims or they said that without evidence either. He said he submitted voluminous volumes of evidence that he was threatened by violence in El Salvador. How? Think about that for a second. How can you submit evidence that you had threats of violence imposed against you in another country when you traveled by foot to the United States, entered the country illegally? I mean, seriously, like, think about that. The corporate press are evil at this point. Seriously. I love this last paragraph here. Abrego Garcia later married Vasquez Sura, who is a U.S. citizen, and the couple are parents to their son and her 2 children from a previous relationship. And once again, folks, that's proof that he done this all after he come into the country illegally and was slated to be deported. So, this is why Donald Trump made that executive order to overturn birthright citizenship. These very people trying to anchor themselves to this country. It is insane that we go along with this. We play this game. These people spit in our face, go behind our back, stab us in the back, and then expect us to be amicable and nice. And, oh, we need to get him out of that prison and bring him back to the United States. I'm sorry. You guys can go somewhere else with this nonsense. This pisses me off like nothing else. Yeah, I'm a border hawk. I'm sorry. I just am. But this kind of garbage just really, really grinds my freaking gears like nothing else. These people spit in our face and expect us to be nice? Oh, I'll bet you money he was getting subsidized by the Biden administration. Pisses me off, y'all. But y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.